Okay, thank you, Carmel. Yes, this has been very hard. And looking at the slides that I've been over and over and over, I'm not sure that they're going to help you. I created them so that we could share the texts. But anyway, we'll do the best we can. This one begins, "How lonely lies Jerusalem, once so full of people. Once honoured by the world, she is now like a widow. The noblest of cities has fallen into slavery." I'm taking some of my readings from this version, the Scrolls. It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful version. And it uses the English Standard Version. The, let's go back. Slides, hopefully you can read them, from the NIV. So until earlier this week, I did have this all organised. It was a nice, gentle, dispassionate and academic sermon on Lamentations. I was going to talk about the value and the importance of lamenting, about hope coming from lamenting, but then I actually saw this picture. It changed my mind slightly, and so I began to reconsider what I was going to say. I'm still going to talk about those things, but I want you to hold this picture in your mind. This is a picture of total destruction. Perhaps not as total as Jerusalem, but close enough for us to be able to bear. With this picture in mind, we live in a world that tells us we should be happy, happy, happy all the time. If we're not happy, happy all the time, then there's something wrong with us. We're broken, or we need fixing. We might need medication or very, very expensive long-term therapy. This is what we're told, but this is not, of course, to belittle or devalue those who actually have need of those things. Because people do need support from time to time. People do need help. We are human. We're vulnerable, we're fragile, we break incredibly easily. I can tell you that from the experience of a broken foot simply by tripping over my own foot. And we need help. What I'm talking about when I say these things is those TV shows that tell us how to be happy, those ads that tell us if we just take this supplement we'll be happy, books that claim to be a guide to a happier you, and activities that can bring happiness. All we have to do is read the book, go to the class, take the supplement, and please note, I'm saying supplement, not medication. In this barrage of happy-making stuff and ideas, I wonder if it's really working. Because recent analysis of happiness in the world shows that a huge proportion of us actually are considering ourselves not to be happy. We are not. Now, and again, all of these sorts of things, reading a book, joining a class, they're all really important things and valuable to our well-being. But are they really a solution? So why do these surveys find we're unhappy? What's wrong with us? Aren't we doing all the things we should? Are our priorities right? Is the problem we just don't have enough stuff? Do we not have enough activity to distract us? Do we not have enough money? In these and those really dark places, where can we look for comfort? Because these brief moments, are they the really dark places? I think we are fortunate that we don't have such a dark place as this one. But we all end up in dark places sometimes. Trust me, I know. To begin with, let's consider Lamentations just as a piece of literature, just to, set us in place. A piece of literature is amazing. It's a wibbly, wobbly, twisty, tricksy, timey-wimey, warpy thing written by an author to be read by a stranger. somebody the author has no connection with. The author tells a story that comes from their imagination or it comes from their life experience, and they write it in a way that a complete stranger can take it and make use of it for their own purposes. Literary critics call this the death of the author, meaning that once a piece of writing is in the world, the author has no control over how it is used. Nonetheless, the author speaks to readers even millennia apart. Simply reading Job's story speaks to us. It speaks of his battles, his compassion, his loss, his redemption. It can move you to tears if you read it deeply, or even if you read it superficially. It's heart-wrenching. But it shows redemption through faith to anyone who reads it. Lamentations also speaks of us here now today about soul-crushing loss, utter despair, and through a narrator who is racked with sorrow, guilt, and horror, and in those darkest of places. Lamentations contain some of the most shocking lines in literature, and the despair of the writer is absolutely palpable. But there are moments of hope, even though the reader does need to work hard to find them. Lamentations is a soul crying out, and a soul that is abandoned, lost, and hopeless. It's written by someone who has witnessed these events. It's part of a lived experience, the autobiography of the author, and written in a way that allows us to walk in his shoes. It's written in a poetic form that guides the reader and allows them to find connection in a way that no other medium can. Poetry is a literary form that is literally designed specifically for the purpose of expressing emotion. So by walking in the shoes of the author, we have access to a deeper understanding of cause and effect and the errors of the people of Judah, what got them into this situation in the first place. By understanding that, we may just have the opportunity to change course, but I'm not entirely convinced that is the only purpose of this text. Because if that were the case, if the only purpose of Lamentations was, this is the bad stuff, this is what'll happen if you don't change course, then it would really just be a threat of punishment and destruction, a kind of divine, don't make me come over there moment. You know those moments. I'm sure we all know them. Is it just a threat, or is there something more in here? Lamentation is considered to have been written by Jeremiah as he looks on the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple around about 586 BCE. That destruction was what Eliora and her Mamina Devorah last week described as their living experience. And those words, those statements were taken directly from Lamentations. So it was probably written sometime very shortly after the events, and we can't be entirely certain if it's the first-hand account of his experience or him stitching together things. But either way, it situates his grief and it gives some order to the chaos and loss surrounding him. It forms and gives form to his cries to God, who is uncharacteristically silent. And it's worth pointing out that poetry is meant to be read out loud by a voice. And the narrator uses language that supports that idea, but language that makes all of this deeply personal. And that personal is best expressed. So just a couple of lines of that personal voice. O Lord, behold my affliction, for the enemy has triumphed. Lord, look and see, for I am despised. Is it nothing to you, all those who pass by? Look and see. Look, O Lord, for I am in distress. Let all their evil doing come before you and deal with them as you have dealt with me. These are very personal statements. So, let's have a look at Lamentations. The Lord has done what he threatened to do. He has destroyed us without mercy. All through the night, get up and cry to the Lord. Pour out your heart and beg him for mercy for your children. Women are eating the bodies of the children they loved. Priests and prophets are being killed in the temple itself. Young and old lie dead in the streets. Yep, I really did say that women are eating their children. And it's not the first or the last time it's said in Lamentations. Pretty much the ultimate taboo, one of those shocking moments. It begins with the Lord carries out his words. Think back to that "don't make me come over there" moment. He did. He came over. So what got everybody to this moment? Jerusalem, God's city, the place of his home, his temple, his sanctuary had become unclean. She had lost her beauty and her glory, worshipping false idols, listening to false prophets. Immorality, all that usual good stuff. Jerusalem's done it all. Weekends at Kuta, afternoons in Amsterdam coffee shops, meditation retreats in Pondicherry. She's bought the t-shirt and probably won the competition. So why did not the destruction happen earlier, before she got into this trouble? Surely she'd have pulled her socks up then. Well, Jerusalem had plenty of warnings. Josiah tried really hard, and he actually did earn her some moments of reprieve, but she went back to her old ways. There were a couple of warm-up moments. Remember, Nebuchadnezzar took the exiles, the king and the family. That's how Eliora and Devorah's story started. Note those whose calling is to guide, direct and correct, kept saying that it would never happen, it would be fine. This is God's city, not in his city would this happen. The priests, the kings and the people, no, they are going to be held to account. And verse 11 there, the Lord turned loose the full force of his fury. He lit a fire in Zion and burned it to the ground. They were called to account, and there's no doubt what happened and who it was. The leaders failed to lead the people in the law, and so the people went their own ways. And how many times have we heard that story? The moments of violence, of cruelty, and dehumanisation in Lamentations are hard to hear and hard to read. But if that's the cause of the lamentation, where is that hope that it's supposed to give us? Hope is always just a small, still voice, like a cry in the wilderness. It can be hard to find because in Lamentations, the palpable stench of the destruction makes it very easy to miss. As it is so often in our grief and sorrow, it can be hard to find. It's easy to miss. So, just in review, where is it? Chapters 1 and 2 are the narrator telling the story, and it's the tone of a reporter. He's reporting what he sees and feels. He has sympathy for Jerusalem in an "oh, how the mighty have fallen" kind of way. The once beautiful, once loved city is now despised and abandoned. Jerusalem herself actually speaks too. She bewails her fall and her destruction. She says, "Look and see if there is any sorrow like my sorrow." She calls this out to passers-by. This is a dark moment. She has fallen, she is lost, she feels abandoned. But then we get chapter 3, and this is a single voice giving an individual reflection on what has happened to them. Possibly the narrator is Jeremiah, we can't be sure. But, it says a few things like, "Remember my affliction, my wanderings. He has made my flesh and my skin. The Lord is my portion." The narrator recognises there is a personal as well as a corporate aspect to the sin of Jerusalem. And he's not only pleading for himself, but he also pleads for Jerusalem, reminding a wrathful God that he is also a God of mercy and forgiveness. This is the voice of someone sitting in sorrow, grieving and wrapped in it like a blanket, or, as the song said, like a pair of wings. For the narrators, the situation is personal. The narrators all speak largely in the first person. This voice does know there is hope, but if only the people will turn and hear it. "I have forgotten what health and peace and happiness are. I do not have much longer to live. My hope in the Lord is gone. The thought of my pain, my homelessness, is bitter poison. I think of it constantly. My spirit is depressed, yet hope returns when I remember this one thing." One thing. I did say it was small. It's not lots of things. One thing. The Lord's unfailing love and mercy still continue, fresh as the morning, as sure as the sunrise. The Lord is all I have. So in him I put my hope. The Lord is good to everyone who trusts in him. So it is best for us to wait in patience, to wait for him to save us. The Lord is merciful and will not reject us forever. He may bring us sorrow, but his love for us is sure and strong. He takes no pleasure in causing us grief or pain. The moments of hope, the thoughts of hope. But remember, one thing, small, easy to miss. In chapter 4, the original narrator picks up where he left off, only this time his tone is much less sympathetic, more chastising. Some of this is in the second person. That's that reporting style. And the use of "my people" in verse 6 reminds us that this continues to be personal, commenting that this destruction is worse than the fate of Sodom, because this is a drawn-out hell on earth. Sodom went with a swift kick. This is punishment, and especially punishment for the priests and the false prophets, because they are time and again picked out. Chapter 5 takes on a new tone. This is a corporate prayer for forgiveness and restoration. The joy of our hearts has ceased. Our dancing has turned to mourning. Woe to us, for we have sinned. When this prayer ends, though, it does end with a moment of uncertainty. "Restore us to you," the voices plead. "Unless you remain angry," they whisper, "unless you may remain angry." Here now today we have some benefit that Jerusalem didn't have. We know how the story ends. And I think that actually in some ways makes that whispered, "Please don't be angry with us anymore," little whisper more poignant. Jerusalem's destruction was so utterly total. God's actions speak so much louder than his words ever could. The described suffering around the narrator is terrifying and highly graphic. The narrator shares his thoughts as he looks on the scene before him. A lament is that expression of sorrow, despair, weeping and mourning, and it's expressed by actions, not words. This is walking a contemplative maze. In some cultures, just saying, It's the preserve of women and it's called hysteria. But no. Lamentation is a demonstrable response to realities of life, to sickness, to loss, to death. These are an inevitable part of being human. And in this world, we work really hard to avoid those things. But they will not be pushed aside despite our best efforts. All you need to do is watch the 6 o'clock news. Every time we see something bad, every time we find ourselves in dark places, we say, technology will save us. We'll reprogram something. We'll take a pill. We'll invent something. We'll believe that something we do will mean we can eventually overcome this problem, this sorrow, this trauma, this disaster. And when they do come along, we struggle because, like Judah, we keep looking for our help in all the wrong places. And again, I must reiterate, this is not to minimise suffering. This is not to negate sorrow. Sorrow, loss are painful, they're hard. But it is also human. So it's important as humans that we give ourselves permission to grieve and we give ourselves some time. I once heard someone say that we should sit in our sorrow and wrap it around us like a blanket. A bit like chapter 3's narrator, a bit like the song, "Wrap Me in Your Wings." And once we've sat there, we may no longer need to sit. We may be ready to get up. But how do we know we're ready? Well, chapter 3 might give us a clue here. He says, "I called your name, O Lord, from the depths of the pit. You heard my plea. You said, 'Do not fear.'" I think that's a good statement that, we might be ready. Do not fear. But won't we still carry all that pain? By sitting in grief, by letting ourselves sorrow, allowing ourselves the experience, we can acknowledge and accept that sorrow. Then, maybe we'll stop fearing and we're ready to get up. Once we've experienced those things, though, they always are with us. They're part of us, and we learn to accommodate them over time. What we carry can take up less space, its burden can become lighter. So this is a statement of action, of agency. It can be carried, but we can give it less power over us. And I'm not talking about the truism there of, time healing wounds. I mean that we can help it lose its power. By sitting in our sorrow, by experiencing our lament, we can acknowledge emotion because it's an active process. And in that, it can lead to healing. It's a form of grief processing, acknowledging it, giving it a name and a form, and then crying out and being told, "Do not fear." We can move, we can grow, and we can become more resilient and perhaps even more wise. So, where are we? It's really hard to talk about Lamentations because there is absolutely no doubt that God turned his back on Judah. It tells us explicitly, "You have turned your back. Where are you? I am not here. I have gone." But about 400 years later, things change when this whole stack of prophecy comes true. It didn't negate the suffering of Jerusalem because, history, but it did change our relationship with that history because Jesus was sent to us. Jesus was sent so we no longer had to fear, so that we had wings to wrap around us in our suffering. So from lamenting can come healing and hope. Sometimes we need to heal, and sometimes we need to see hope so healing can occur. There are so many intrusions and events in our lives that can lead to us lamenting. individually or in community. Lamentation is a recognition of our loss and suffering. Things bring us to lamenting. They're sort of generally beyond our control, but maybe not. Remember, we're not all. We might talk about being innocent, but we're not. We are still sinners. After all, Judah contributed to Judah's problems. It began with disobedience, then to rebellion, refusal to follow the law. If this all sounds a bit familiar, well, yes, things haven't changed that much. We still see these things around us, but don't forget that hope that is there. One of the important messages of Lamentations is that suffering, sorrow, and loss are a consequence of sin. And suffering is part of being human because humans sin. People can be bullies, they can be cruel, they can be greedy, arrogant, self-serving, faithless, resentful, the list goes on. But some people like to think still we can be perpetually happy. Others like to think that happiness is given to us by stuff and things, or by looking for a little g God, or faith in interesting places. Circumstances that crush our soul do need to be lamented, but to deny sorrow, to ignore feelings of grief and despair, is a pretty sure way of needing those real medical interventions. It's not happiness we need, and that's the message of Lamentations, I think. It's not happiness we need, it's hope, real hope. The hope that comes from forgiveness, from overcoming those struggles, that grief, that pain, by listening to that still small voice that's so easily missed. So, more than just a threat of don't make me come over there, but a story of people who lost their way. They looked everywhere for happiness. They looked for comfort. They looked for faith. They looked for a big G God. But they forgot that they actually had all of these things to begin with. If only they had listened to that small voice that told them where to look.